And hello, good grade 8. And so this is going to be our lecture discussion for the last um, chapter that will be included in your periodical test. Okay? So, ayan. So last time, we have discussed about sound and its different properties. Right now, we're going to go to another type of wave, which is going to be focusing on light. Okay, so before we continue, so let's just look at the question here. So what is the correct order of the colors in the rainbow? So I know all of you have already um, seen a rainbow. Okay? So, ano nga ba yung pagkakasunod-sunod nun? Okay, isipin nyo muna. Okay. So, kung hindi man kayo nakakita ng rainbow or kung may color blind sa inyo, and so ito yung pagkakasunod-sunod niya dapat. Saan na yan? Okay, so we have here at the outermost arc, we have red, and then next is orange, and then yellow, green, indigo, blue, and violet. Thus, we have the acronym called Roy G. Biv. Okay, so malamang alam nyo na yan since elementary days, no? Ayan. So, now, we're going to focus on chapter 4, or the fourth lesson number 4. It's going to be all about light waves. And so, as you can see, we have Christmas lights on top because it's already bare months. Ayan, malapit na magpasko. Ayan. So, dapat medyo festive naman tayo, di ba? Ayan. So, ayan. Pag-uusapan natin ngayon yung tungkol sa light, and we're going to focus on the 6 properties of light. Ayan. So, these properties of light, we're going to discuss them one by one. Okay? Pero hindi tayo mag-i-in-depth dun sa iba kasi i-discuss nyo din siya i-discuss nyo din siya further on sa grade 10. Sa grade 10, meron kayong, mag-focus kayo dun. Anyway, so ito, pahapyaw pa lang nung sa iba. Okay? So now let's go to the first property of light. And so we have reflection. So reflection, malamang alam nyo na din yan. So reflection is the bouncing of light when it hits a surface or a boundary of another medium. So an example of this one is when you look at a mirror. Diba? So you see your reflection. Diba? O baka may kumanta na ng reflection ng bulan dyan And so, bale, ayan. So, reflection, yun nga. So, kapag tumama yung light sa isang surface, magbabounce back lang siya. So, take note of the word bouncing. Okay. So, here is a picture that shows you a simple diagram of light. So, we have different terms here. So, you can see we have the normal, we have the angle of incidence, angle of reflection, reflected ray, and incident ray. So, we are going to define all of those terminologies. Okay? So first, let's have the incident ray. So the incident ray is the ray that strikes the surface. So we represent light as a ray. Okay, so kahit na alam natin na wave siya, pero we know that light goes a straight direction. So that's why in this lesson, we're going to represent light as a ray. Okay? So, incident ray, yun lang yung ray or yung light na papunta dun sa surface. Again, take note, it is the light or the ray that strikes the surface, papunta. Okay? Next, let us define the reflected ray. So, it is the ray that bounces off the surface. So, we all know that the incident ray is the one that goes towards the surface, the blue line that you see there at the bottom. So, that is the surface, reflective surface. And then, once the incident ray goes towards the surface, it is reflected off. Kasi nga reflection, di ba? So, pag nag-reflect na yung ray, ang tawag na dun ay reflected ray. Okay? Next, we have the normal, or we call this the normal line. So, the normal line is the perpendicular line to the surface. As you can see that our line here, our surface is horizontal, and then the normal line is perpendicular. So, meaning when you there is a formation of a right angle between the normal line and the surface. Okay? So, mamaya magiging importante yung normal line na yan. Next, we have the angle of incidence. So, the angle of incidence is the angle between the incident ray and the normal. Okay? So, yun lang yung makita mo sa gitna. Okay? It is found between the normal and the incident ray. It is never found between the incident ray and the surface. Okay? May mga nagkakamali kasi doon, nagsuswitch sila. And then, next, we have the angle of reflection. So, the angle of reflection is the angle between the reflected ray and the normal. So, halos kapareho lang din nung sa angle of incidence. So, nasa gitna lang siya ng normal tsaka ng reflected ray. Okay? So, ito yung mga terminologies na meron tayo for reflection, and we're going to use that to to better understand the different laws of reflection. Okay, so we only have a few. Yan. So, meron lang tayong dalawa na kailangan tandaan about reflection. Okay, so first we have the incident ray, the normal, and the reflected ray all lie on the same plane. So, kumbaga, if you look at it in a 3D perspective, so if you draw a plane, you know that a plane is just like one side, di ba? So, pag nilagay kumbaga, imagine niyo na lang 3D na nasa isang plane lang sila. Parang kunwari magkakatapat sa isang parang surface or papel. Yeah. So, basta magkakasama sila sa same plane. Okay? And next, the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. So, kahit anong mangyari, kahit anong anggulo na tumama yung incident ray natin, so, kung paano magbabounce off yung reflected ray natin, so magiging equal lang siya sa angle of incidence. So, for example, an incident ray, so we have an incident ray that has an angle of incidence of 30. Okay, 30 degrees. So, what will be the angle of reflection? So, automatically, it is 30 degrees also. Okay? So, for example, yan, ito pa. So, itong black, ito yung surface natin. Tapos ito yung normal. And then, let's have yellow for the incident ray. And then, this is our reflected ray. So, what if the angle here is 40 degrees? So, our question is, what will be the angle of reflection? So, hindi natin alam kung ano yung angle of incidence. Diba? So, for example, ganyan yung binigay. Hindi binigay yung angle of incidence, pero may 40 degrees na sinabi between the surface and the incident ray. So, how will we know the value of the angle of incidence? We all know that the normal line and the surface, they produce a 90 degrees, di ba? So, kumbaga 90 degrees yung nasa gitna nila. So, kung 40, yung mula dito hanggang dun sa incident ray, so ngayon, para makuha natin yung angle of incidence, so we will have, ayan, so 90 degrees minus 40 degrees. So, para makuha lang natin yung angle of incidence. So, what is 90 minus 40? It is 50 degrees. So, we all know that 50 degrees is the value of our angle of incidence. So, now that we know the value of the angle of incidence, can we already find the value for the angle of reflection? Yes. So, syempre, since nakuha natin 50 for angle of incidence, so magiging 50 din yung angle of reflection. Okay? So, clear ba yan? And so, for example, hindi angle of incidence yung binigay, pero may ibang angle na binigay. So, pwede pa rin natin makuha yung angle of reflection. Okay? So, ang kailangan lang natin dito is tandaan yung mga certain rules in geometry. Okay? Ayan. So, now let's go to our next slide. Pag di nyo na-gets, replay nyo na lang. Ayan. Okay. Saan na ba? Okay. Now, let's go to the two types of reflection. Okay? So, kasi we all know that not all surfaces are smooth. Diba? So, pero discuss muna natin yun kapag smooth yung surface. So, when we have a smooth surface, the type of reflection that you see is irregular reflection. So, the example that I told you earlier, wherein you're looking at a mirror, so that is a regular reflection. Paano? So, this is a simple diagram. So, kung napapansin nyo, meron tayong tatlong incident rays na tumatama dun sa straight surface natin. So, kung napapansin nyo, parallel lahat yung reflected and incident rays nila. Kasi lahat ng normal line nila ay parallel din sa isa't isa. So, since, kumbaga in coordination, yung reflected rays natin, so, makakakita tayo ng clear picture kasi hindi siya kalat-kalat. Okay? So that's why, ayan, reflection on a smooth surface results in specular reflection. So that is the other term for regular reflection, specular. Okay, so basta clear yung nakikita mo, basta smooth yung surface mo, makakita ka ng clear picture. So kumbaga malinaw lahat. Okay? Yan. Next. Our second type of reflection is diffuse reflection. So in diffuse reflection, you can see a distorted or a blurred image. So how do we see, or why does a distorted or a blurred image is produced? Okay, the reason for that one is we have a rough or uneven surface. So diffuse reflection happens when the light rays go to an even surface. Go to an uneven surface. Yan. So, basta hindi pantay-pantay. So, kung napapansin nyo dito, yung incident rays natin, all of them are parallel. Why? Because they all come from the same light source. But as you can see, the surface is not even. So, baku-bako siya. So, bakit naging kalat-kalat ngayon tuloy yung, tawag dito yung reflected rays natin? It still follows the second, tawag dito, yung isa sa mga laws of reflection natin na yung, tawag dito, na angle of incidence is always equal to, the angle of reflection. Okay, so kung titignan natin closely, kung magdodraw tayo ng perpendicular line dun sa uneven surface na yun, kumbaga, yung angle of incidence tsaka yung angle of reflection ay equal pa din sa isa't isa. Okay, so, sige, gawa tayo ng medyo malaking version. So, wait lang. So, whiteboard na lang para mas malaki. Ayan. So, kunwari, ito yung surface natin na bako-bako. Ayan. Tapos, ito yung light rays natin. Imagine nyo ng parallel yan lahat. Okay? So, di ba meron tayong normal line? Di ba? So, kunwari, itong part na to, ito yung normal line niya. So, kung ito yung angle of incidence, so dapat ganyan lang din yung angle of reflection. So, ganyan lang din kaliit. Kumaga, ito na yung ano niya. Yan. So, ito dito. Ano ngayon yung normal line niya? So, syempre, iba na siya sa normal line nito. So, medyo tagilid lang siya. So, parang, ito yung normal line niya. Sobrang liit. Kumbaga, yung angle of incidence natin ay sobrang liit na din. So, malamang, yung magiging angle of reflection natin, magiging sobrang liit na lang din. Yan. So, yan, maliit na lang din. Tapos, pagdating dito sa isa pa, yan. So, kung ito yung surface natin, ito yung perpendicular sa point na yan. Kumbaga, kinukuha natin yung perpendicular na normal line sa bawat point na tatamaan. Okay? So, kung ito yung angle niya, edi Ayan. So, kumbaga napapansin yun, kaya nagiging kalat-kalat yung reflected rays natin. So, pag kalat-kalat at hindi coordinated yung reflected rays sa isa't isa, makakakita kayo ng, ng hindi clear na image. Okay? So, yun yung reason para dyan. Okay? So, clear ba yun? Ayan. So, balik na tayo dito sa ating PowerPoint. So that's the reason why we have a distorted or blurred image. So the one that you can see here in the picture is we have a running water. So that's a river. Okay, so a river doesn't have an even surface. So uneven, clear pa ba yung ano ko? Basta hindi even yung surface ng river. So kaya nakakita kayo ng blurred image kasi nga umaagos yung tubig. Okay? So, clear na ba tayo dito? Okay. So, now let's go to the second property of light. So, we have what we call refraction. So, huwag kayong malilito sa reflection at refraction, ha? So, kung ang reflection ay bouncing of light, ang refraction naman ay bending. Okay, take note of the word bending of light. But it's not just bending, because there's another property wherein light also bends. So, ang characteristic ng bending ng light dito is when it passes from one medium to another. So, again, this is our definition for refraction. We have a change in direction or the bending of light when it passes from one medium to another medium of different optical density. So, ito, nangyari kasi dito, yung light natin is nagpa-pass through from one medium to another. So, hindi na lang siya basta pagba-bounce off ng light, pero tumatagos yung ating light ray sa objects natin. So, this one usually happens to translucent or transparent materials. Okay? So, ano nga ba yung optical density? So, the optical density is the innate property of objects that dictate the how much light passes through. Basta iba-iba ng optical densities ang bawat material na meron tayo. Okay? So, merong mas optically dense, merong less optically dense. So, there are values in your textbook that will show you the different values of the optical densities. So, yan. Meron din tayong simple diagram to show refraction. So, we have here new terms. Dalawa lang naman yung new terms natin dito. So, alam nyo naman na yung terms, definition ng incident ray, normal, and angle of incidence. So, ang i-define na lang natin dito is yung refracted ray tsaka angle of refraction. So, the refracted ray, so the definition of that one is, it is the ray that is bent from passing through one medium to another. Okay, so again, the refracted ray is the light that was bent as it passes from one medium to another. So, yan yung na-refract na light. Next, we have the angle of refraction. So, the angle of refraction is just the angle between the normal and the refracted ray. Okay? So, and so meron din tayong different laws for refraction. So, we have 3. First, so halos kapareho lang din nung sa reflection. The incident ray, the normal, and the refracted ray all lie on the same plane. Next, the index of refraction for a particular medium is constant. So, ano nga ba yung index of refraction? So, the index of refraction is the ratio of the velocity of light in a certain medium and and the speed of light in vacuum. Okay, so ano lang siya. Pero hindi tayo magko-concentrate masyado dyan kasi sa grade 10 nyo pa yung pag-aaralan. Okay? Then next, when light enters an optically denser medium, it bends towards the normal and vice versa. Okay? So, paano nga ba nangyayari yan? Okay, wait. Balik tayo sa whiteboard natin at tanggalin na natin. Yan. So, paano nga ba nangyayari yan? So, meron tayong mga 2 scenarios na pwedeng mangyari. So, let's say, this is our surface for option 1, and this is our surface for option 2. So, meron din tayong normal. And then, meron din tayong, sabi ko nga may arrow dito sa Zoom, no? Kaya pwede pala ito gamitin. Hindi ko ginamit kanina. Ayan. So, di ba mas tuwid dapat to? Dapat kanina ko pa ginamit. Anyway, ayan. So, ito yung ating incident ray. Ayan. Tama na ba siya? Sakto na. Ayan. So, meron tayong incident ray. So, dito, di ba from less dense to, wait lang. So, kumbaga ito yung less yung dense, tapos ito yung more dense. Basta optical densities yung difference nito. Tapos ito ay more dense, less dense. Okay. So, di ba ang sinasabi, it bends towards the higher optical density. Di ba? So, so kapag galing sa less dense papunta sa more dense, magbe-bend siya towards the normal line. Okay, so kumbaga, mali. Ano niyo magando? Yan. So kumbaga, magbe-bend siya towards the magbe-bend siya towards the tawag dito, more dense. Diba? So, kumbaga, magbe-bend siya towards the normal line kasi mas dense yung pinuntahan niya. So, kaya, ito. And so, kumbaga, magiging mas maliit yung value ng angle of refraction natin. Pero kung dito naman tayo sa more dense to less dense, yung refracted ray natin, it will bend away from the normal. So, kumbaga, mas lalaki ngayon yung angle of refraction natin kapag from higher optical density to lower optical density. Okay? So, nagiging ganyan kung paano magbe-bend yung light natin. Okay? Yan. So, So, yun lang. Yun lang yung ating mga so, yun lang yung ating mga laws para sa refraction. Okay? So, for the other mga mas mahirap na na concepts for refraction, sa grade 10 yun na yun malalaman. Okay? So, now let's go to the third property of light, which is dispersion. So, kung ang reflection ay bouncing, ang refraction ay bending from one medium to another, ang dispersion naman ay separation. Okay? So, dispersion is the separation of white light by a prism into bands of colors. So, dito ngayon papasok yung ating spectrum of colors. So, we have yung red, orange, yellow, green, yung blue, and violet. Ba't di ko nasama indigo dyan? Pero dapat kasama yun. Basta Roy G. Beam. Due to the difference in the wavelength of each color. Okay, so kumbaga meron din tayong refraction dito, pero ang mangyayari kasi dito ay sineseparate. So, kumbaga, special type of refraction siya kung saan sineseparate niya yung white light into the spectrum. So, yan. So, yung white light kasi, it contains all the colors of the spectrum. But since there is a difference in the wavelength of each color, once that it passes through a prism, so yung prism kasi yun yung nagpapaseparate dun sa white light. Okay, so as you can see, we have red that is bent the least, diba? So, kumbaga ito yung natin. Ito yung white light natin, yung paakyat. Okay, so yung red, yun yung least na nabebent. So, meron tayong orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. So, red is the least bent color, while violet is the most bent na color. Okay? So, paano nga ba nangyayari yung yung rainbow dun sa ating kalangitan? So, meron kasi tayong mga water droplets that act as a prism for sunlight. So, yung sunlight kasi, it's white light that passes through the rain droplets. So, kapag sumakto siya at na-separate ni droplets yung white light into different colors, so, kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng rainbow. Okay? So, kaya usually pag after ulan, saka natin nakikita yung rainbow. Kasi dun yung time na mas marami yung water droplets natin sa kalangitan. Okay? Ayan. So, now let's focus on the wavelengths, frequencies, and energies. So, kanina, parang simple diagram lang ng kung paano nasa-separate sila sa isa't isa. So, now we will have a spectrum. So, as you can see, this picture shows the difference in wavelengths of the different colors. So, as you can see, the wavelength of red light is 0.7 micrometers. And so, pagdating sa blue, meron tayong 0.5 micrometers na wavelength. And then, yung violet natin, yun yung may pinakamaliliit na wavelength. Okay? So, yan. So, sila yung may 0.4 micrometers. Okay? So, yung frequencies naman nila, so syempre, di ba, we all know the relationship between wavelength and frequency. Okay? So, nakikita yun dun sa diniscuss ko sa sound last time, di ba? Ano nga equation na yun? So, di ba meron tayong V is equal to F lambda, di ba? So, as you can see, magkatabi sila sa same side. So, anong relationship yan? Direct or indirect? Di ba indirect yan? So, pag mas mataas yung wavelength, mas mababa yung frequency. So, yung red natin, yan. So, since mas mataas yung wavelength niya, mas mababa yung frequency. Tapos, since mas maliit yung wavelength ng violet, so, mas mataas yung frequency niya. Okay? So, ayan. Okay? So, tas marerelate din natin yan sa energy. So, usually, ang may pinakamatataas na energy is yung, ito, banda sa may violet. Yan. So, meron kasing corresponding na energies na pwedeng makuha sa color. Yan. Depende sa kung anong color yung light natin. And, pero you'll dive into that somewhere in the future. And so ngayon, titignan naman natin ngayon ang reflection, absorption, and perception. So, anong kulay yung suot niyong damit ngayon? Kung ano man yung kulay ng suot niyong damit ngayon, kaya yan ang nakikita niyong kulay kasi yan yung nire-reflect na light. Okay, so for example, you have white light in your room right now. And then that white light is approaching your clothes. So, the rest of the colors that are included in white light, di ba yung white light natin, nakalagay dun lahat ng colors ng spectrum, ng rainbow, yung Roy G. Biv. Pero kung ano yung nire-reflect niya, yun lang yung, kung ano yung nakita niyong kulay, yun lang yung nire-reflect niya na, na kulay. Okay? So, for example, itong highlighter ko na ito, kita ba na orange yan? Ayan. So, kaya ito orange, kasi ina-absorb niya yung red, ina-absorb niya yung yellow, ina-absorb yung blue, ina-absorb yung violet nitong highlighter na to. Ang nire-reflect niya lang ay orange, kaya orange yung nakikita nyo. Okay, so ganun din sa ibang kulay. So, ito, yung ID ng matter, kaya blue yung nakikita nyo kasi nire-reflect niya yung blue. Tapos na-absorb niya lahat ng ibang colors. Okay? So, paano naman yung buhok natin, yung black? Ano kaya nire-reflect nito? Okay? So, kung ang white ay the presence of all colors, ang black naman ay absence of all colors. So, kumbaga, ang buhok natin, pag itim yung buhok nyo, ina-absorb niyan lahat ng white light. So, kaya ang nakikita nyo is black. Okay? Ayun. So, ngayon, paano naman kung hindi white yung light na nag-shine sa isang object? So, meron tayong tatlong scenario dito. So, for example, you have red light that is approaching a blue book. Kung red lang yung light doon, ano yung nire-reflect ng blue book na kulay? Di ba blue lang? So, since red lang yung light na nag-shine sa kanya, wala siyang marereflect na blue. Kasi, ang blue book, ina-absorb niya yung red, yung orange, yung yellow, yung green, yung indigo, and violet. Blue lang yung nire-reflect niya. So, since wala siyang ma-reflect na blue, kaya ang makikita mo is black. Kasi ina-absorb niya yung red na light at wala siyang nare-reflect. Okay? So, di ba ganyan usually pag sa parang nalamang di pa naman kayo nagpa-party or something. Pero kung madilim, tapos puro party lights lang. And so, usually medyo mga maitim yung na nakikita doon kasi hindi nila nare-reflect yung tamang color na dapat nilang i-reflect. Okay? So, yan. Second example, we have a green light that is shown on a red book. And a red book only reflects red light. But red is not present in green light, so that's why green light is absorbed. Kaya, kung may red book kayo na nakalagay sa ilalim ng green light, black ang makikita nyo. O ngayon, paano naman itong blue na light na nagsashine sa green na book? Ano kayang color yung makikita nyo? Anong nire-reflect ng green book? Green lang. Ano yung light na nagsashine sa kanya? Blue light only. So, meron bang green light na marereflect ang green book sa blue light na tumatama sa kanya? Yes or no? Wala, di ba? So, malamang, anong makikita niyong color ng green book? Okay, black. Okay, black din siya. Okay? So, clear ba tayo kapag white light or any other color of light yung tumatama sa kanya? O sige, o paano to? Paano kung red light ang tumama sa red na t-shirt? Ano makikita nyo? O malamang red kasi meron siyang i-reflect na red light. Okay? So, clear ba tayo dito sa reflection, absorption, and perception? Okay? O sige, let's go to the fourth property. So, we have diffraction. So, ngayon yung diffraction natin, it is bending of light. But this one is a different bending compared to refraction. So, bending of light as it passes through an obstruction such as a small slit. So, diffraction only happens in one medium. Meanwhile, refraction happens on two mediums. Of two media pala. Plural. Ayan. So, yung diffraction kasi, nasa iisang medium lang yung light. Tapos meron lang siyang dinadaanan na obstruction or slit or corner. So, saan ba makikita yung example na ito? So, kunwari, nasa loob kayo ng isang kwarto na madilim. Tulog na kayo. Tapos may, yung ilaw sa labas nakabukas pa. Tapos biglang may nagbukas ng pintuan. So, di ba yung ilaw ng door, hindi lang siya kung saan naka-angle yung door. Di ba medyo nagbe-bend pa siya papunta sa kumbaga, hindi siya yung straight lang, di ba? So, nagbe-bend yung light. So, yun yung example ng diffraction. So, this one is a simple diagram that shows diffraction. So, ito. And so, parang the smaller the obstruction or yung slit, the more na magbe-bend yung light. So, paano kung corner lang? So, ganun lang din. Parang ito yung sinasabi ko na pintuan. So, di ba pag kunwari nakabukas yung pintuan, hindi lang straight yung makita nyo na light, kundi nagbe-bend siya, di ba? So, yan lang yung that is the simplest way I can explain what diffraction is. Okay? So, doon lang tayo sa simple. Huwag sa complicated. Ayan. So, next we have interference. And so, for interference, so this is the phenomena in which two or more light waves overlap in space wherein they add up together or cancel each other. So for interference, this one involves two light waves or two light rays. Okay? So yung iba nating mga napag-usapan, puro tig-isa lang yun. Pero ito, meron tayong dalawang light source. Okay? So meron tayong tinatawag na constructive or destructive interference. So the next slide will show you its difference. So for constructive interference, as you can see, we have here two waves that are in sync. Or kumbaga, kapag nagkasalubong sila, ay mag-a-add up sila sa isa't isa. So kung napapansin nyo, yung nasa tuktok is they have the same amplitude. Tapos, nung nagkasama na sila, dinoble nila yung isa't isa. So, kumbaga, ang example nito is kapag lalong lumiwanag yung ilaw, kapag, kunwari, di ba usually pag sa stage, ayan, so maraming ilaw na, ayan, so kumbaga, they reinforce, okay? So, pag constructive interference, they reinforce each other. Okay? So, kaya mas lumiliwanag. Pero yung opposite naman yung nangyayari sa destructive interference. So for destructive interference, so we have here two waves that are not in sync with each other. So hindi sila synchronized. So they're actually opposite each other. So once they meet, they cancel each other out. Okay? So ang nangyayari doon is dumidilim. Okay? So so, since they cancel each other out, magiging mas dark yung makikita nyo. So, yun yung isang example ng kung paano tayo makakita ng destructive interference sa light. Okay, so meron experiment si Thomas Young. So, meron siyang dalawang slit, tapos parang nag-overlap yung dalawang light sa isa't isa. So, meron siyang nakitang alternating pattern ng light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. So, yung picture nun, example nun, makikita niyo sa textbook. Okay? So, yun yung experiment ni Thomas Young. Kaya niya nakita or naipakita yung interference of light. Okay? Bakit number 4 to? Dapat number 5 to. Ay, hindi ko pala napalta. Pero 5 dapat yan, interference. Okay, next is the last property, which is polarization. So, ano nga ba yung polarization? So, the direction and magnitude of the light vibrating in all directions are related in a specified way based on the polarizer. So, ang sinasabi lang ng polarization is yung light kasi natin, since pwede kasi siyang nagva-vibrate in all directions. So, pwedeng kalat-kalat siya. So, pag meron tayong parang polarizer, yung polarizer kasi natin it is a light filter. So, the filter where light will pass through. So, kumbaga, babawasan niya yung intensity ng light na dumadaan sa kanya. Di ba ganun kapag may filter? Yan. So, an example wherein polarization is used in when you use sunglasses. So, di ba masyadong maano yung glare ng araw? Tapos kung gusto mong mabawasan yung intensity ng glare ng araw, magsusuot ka ng shades. But yung shades kasi, yun yung polarizer natin na nagfi-filter ng light. So, for example, kung nakita nyo, di ba meron tayong iba't ibang arrow para sa unpolarized light. So, yung polarizer natin, 'di ba, patayo lang yung inaalaw niya na dumaan. So, yung other na direction, hindi na niya iaalaw na mag-pass through. So, ang nangyari kasi pag sa shades, ang pine-prevent na pumasok dyan sa mata is yung UV rays. Kasi meron siyang certain direction. So, yun yung binabawas ng shades. Kaya, nagiging less yung intensity ng light na dumadaan sa may mata nyo. Okay? So, yun. Okay? So, that is all the properties of light that we can discuss. So, ayan, abangan nyo na lang bukas yung quiz number ano bang quiz number na tayo? Quiz number 3. And so, halo yung sound and light. Okay, so tigta 10 items sila. And so, gamitin nyo na lang na reviewer yung parehong video lecture ko sa sound and yung video lecture nitong light para makapag-aral kayo sa quiz tomorrow. Okay? And then, yung mga laboratory experiments for this one is i-announce ko na lang siguro sa susunod. Basta yun, yung pointers natin is from lesson 1 until this. Okay? Ayan. So, that's it. Thank you. Ayan. So, pag may tanong, mag-chat na lang kay Miss. Okay? So, goodbye and thank you.